Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Final Formation. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Happy Meal and publisher City Connection, Final Formation released in October of 2025 for the PC via Steam and the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. A reimagining of Jaleco's 1984 classic Formation Z, Final Formation is a side-scrolling mission-based mech shoot-'em-up, so think something along the lines of Assault Suit Lynos. So if you enjoy titles like that, or are looking for something that's a little more unique, then Final Formation I think is definitely a shoot-'em-up to check out. With that said, let's dive right in. Finding ourselves at the main menu, there are a couple modes we can play the game in. There's the time trial, where we're looking to complete the game as quickly as possible, and then under start, you have the option to either start a new game or continue. Starting a new game, we see our 3 save slots. If you have data under one of these slots, starting another game will ask you if you want to overwrite that. We do want to do so. It is great that you can continue, as the game is a little bit longer with its mission-based gameplay. Now, starting the game, occasionally we will get these tutorials through our first few missions. If you ever want to go back and look at these, they are available in the start menu. So here it's teaching us how to use the XPEL here, which is the mech that we're using. Now, if you've played the original title that this is based off of, Formation Z, then this is going to look pretty familiar, as the stage is very similar to the original. And a lot of our gameplay comes from that title as well. So we have a mech that's progressing in the screen from left to right, and we can shoot in an arc, either up or down in front of us. We also have kind of like a charge shot, the Big Bang, and we'll have the ability to jump. If you hold the jump button, then the XPEL transforms from a mech into a fighter, and this is pretty important, as we'll have sections like this where we're rather traversing over water, but unlike the original, we can transform into the mech form and even as playing move into the water, whereas you could not do that in Formation Z. So on the bottom of the screen, you can see a couple things that are pretty useful. There's a mini map that shows us where we're at in relation to our mission goal, and also distance to that goal. So we're almost there, so we'll transform back into our mech form, and, well, that actually happened automatic, and we'll transition into our next stage. So real quick, on the left side of the screen, we have our buttons for our current mech that we're using, as well as our HP in the percentage down there at the bottom. So, if you've played Final Exarion, then the cutscene format of this game will appear very familiar, as it uses that same comic book style from that particular title. That's actually something that City Connection's doing here that's really awesome, is they're taking Final Exarion and Final Formation and basically making them into one continuity, as this game does follow several years after the events in Final Exarion. In fact, you're actually playing, at this point, the original pilot. So now we have our first boss. We need to take out these 2 tentacles, and it's best to go and do that using your Big Bang shot, as that's significantly more powerful than your base shot. Now from this point, however, the game takes over more with the story section here, and we've got more cutscene that we'll skip past, and then the game has a bit of a time jump. So it jumps from where we're at to 5 years later. So we're not actually playing the character we played as in Final Exarion, we actually get a different character. And the gameplay itself has changed quite a bit. So now that we get our mission, so when you start a mission, you'll have your mission summary presented to you either here or done via the comic book, cutscene style, which is actually pretty neat. So our mech is similar to what we had before, however there are some differences. So we still have the ability to jump, But now we don't transform right away. The way that we can actually transform is, so here's teaching us how to dash and backstep. We can transform into a fighter mode, which allows us to combine with other mechs. So you see here we've got these two blue turrets that we can combine with either, and then we become, let's see, this mech form. But that actually gives us the option to combine with other types of mechs, and that will provide the firepower that we need to fight our targets. So on the bottom of the map there, you can see we have our two targets, and this first mission doesn't have any time associated with it, but for some of the missions that you'll be playing in the game, there is a time associated with that. So our attacks are still basically the same. We have our primary shot, but now we can go left and right, so we can shoot all the way around us. We still have our big bang shot, but we also, depending on which kind of mech you're combined with, we have what's called, showing us here, a Pell shot. So using that for this particular turret is this awesome, massive laser. But we do have a limited number of shots, which is the ammo that's available for that is shown on the left with our HP. So now that we've defeated that target, we need to go back to the right to get our other target. If you're at the bases, which you can see here on the map, then you can heal up. And then once we're healed up, I'll transform back into this fighter form, and I'll dash all the way back to the right. And let's grab a different type of mech to fight this other mech with. So here we'll grab this hovercraft, which allows us to fly around. And instead of for its Pell shot, instead of a massive laser, we've got these options that we can fire that will home in on enemies and also deal damage directly to the enemies as well. So for this particular boss, this target that we're fighting, where it can only shoot in front of itself in either direction, being able to attack it from the sky is very useful. Now, as we're still in the tutorial section of the game, after we finish that mission, we also encounter our, well, I guess it's our second boss. But this boss here, we'll want to use our Big Bang shot on primarily, as we're not the mech on the ground. We don't have as powerful of a Pell shot, so this will be our faster way of defeating the boss. The bosses do show damage by changing color, so the closer they are to being defeated, the redder they turn. So a combination of Big Bang and Pell, and I probably do want to be using dash. As the hovercraft, you do have a quick dash, but it will give us some option to dodge the enemy here. So now you can see the boss is turning red. We're almost complete with this fight. And first boss in this section of the game defeated. So after we finish missions, you do get a mission summary, and in the case of a lot of the missions, you'll also end up getting a life up. So although this game doesn't have a difficulty, that's one of the things that I kind of feel makes it easier, is completing missions gives you additional lives. So overall, it's pretty easy to complete the game basically on one playthrough. Especially where you're saving as you go, that's like a fairly straightforward way to play the game. So now it's telling us a little bit more about our, objectives here. So we're looking to go and collect these subspace cores to unlock the other boss fights. There's 4 total. We've already defeated the first boss. And how do we get the missions? So we'll go ahead and transform into the jet to fly around so you can see what we're doing here for the missions. So usually next to bases we have these, you have to be transformed to or rather combined to access these missions. But we have these missions here that you can press up to start. So for this one, it's a defense mission. We have a few different types of missions, and I've kind of broken things down by what I feel are the main ones. So we have these defense missions where we're defending one of the bases against enemy onslaught, and your goal here is to keep the base from taking significant amount of damage for the time that's available for the mission, which in this case here in the top right we see is 90 seconds. There's also transport missions and there's exterminate missions. So transport missions, you're either moving people or goods from one base to another, and the exterminate, it was like the missions they gave us at the beginning of the game where we have a target and we're looking to destroy those targets. So we're not doing this entirely alone. There are a couple defense turrets on either side of the base that help us shoot down these enemies. But our goal is just to keep the base from taking damage for that period of time. So overall, the mission-based gameplay, I feel, is a pretty fun way to explore different ideas in a shoot-'em-up, but some of the missions can be a little tedious. Like if we're moving goods from one base to another base over a specific, rather large distance, depending on what you're looking for a shoot-'em-up, that might not be what you signed up for. So do keep that in mind. Some of the missions can occasionally feel a little bit like long and tedious in the way that the gameplay works. One thing that is nice about defending this base is we do have the ability to heal up if we take any damage, since we're standing right in the middle of a base, and all we have to do is just stand in this section here and we will heal up. 10 more seconds of defense and we'll be moving on to our next mission. So completing the mission, we get a bonus of cores based off a little bit based off our progress, and as I mentioned, we also get a life up. So now we've cleared the mission for this particular stage. If we go back over here, we can't start the mission again. So now we need to move on find another mission to start, which we can see on the map there. So if we go all the way to the next base to our right, we can switch into this hovercraft and, oops, wrong button, start the mission from here. So this mission is a transport mission, as I was telling you earlier. So here we get our description of the mission itself, saying we have to take the goods to the submarine base. And this gives us a good way to show you some of the mechs, but it also shows you a little bit about what can be tedious on the game. So that gives us a good chance to talk a little bit more about the title itself. So as I said, I love what City Connection is doing here, taking a couple of the titles from Jaleco's back catalog like Xerion and Formation Z and making this final continuity with them. So we've got Final Xerion, which is a wonderful game, Final Formation, which admittedly I don't like as much as Final Xerion, and making it into one cohesive story. So now let's talk a little bit about, So if you take damage, then you'll lose your transport package that you're taking, and depending on what we're carrying, so if it's say if we're transporting people, you'll lose like people in the box itself. Otherwise, in this case, it just simply takes damage. So we're almost to the point where we're going to be transitioning into the water. We can see another Pell unit that we can connect with once we hit that point. So when we do transform, the package, the crate that we're transporting will be dropped. So that's something to note. So we do have underwater Pell unit we can connect with here, and this one will allow us to move significantly faster underwater than the other units or the fighter by itself. So there are missions and bosses that you will encounter underwater, so this is pretty important. And that's the basic gameplay loop for Final Formation. As you move through the game, we'll have a few more missions, and that won't be quite as you won't be choosing your mission as much that will ultimately lead to your final boss encounters. And the end of the game is decently satisfying, so that's something to go and look forward to. We're almost to the base where we need to drop off our goods, do so, and bam. So as far as the minus flavors are concerned, the problems that I go and have with the game, sometimes the missions can just feel a little bit grindy and tedious. So if that's not that big of a problem for you, and you like to see this style of gameplay, then that can definitely be a plus. But as far as like the biggest minus flavor, the thing that I was the most frustrated with the game, there's a mission later on where you're in space, and that mission, the controls like are very true to how you would be maneuvering in space, and because of that, extremely difficult and frustrating. I didn't really enjoy all that as much at all. So, but that's just for me, and that's something that I had some frustration with. The space missions and the controls there were definitely a bit more frustrating to deal with, but that was the biggest point that I was not happy with the game. As far as the plus flavors are concerned, so I love the different mechs that we can combine with, and here we can go and see a couple of those. So now we've got these targets that we can that we're aiming to destroy, these ones here. So you can either do this a couple ways with like either your big bang shot, or oh dang it, missed it with that one. We can also use the Pell shots. And this mission will give us the chance to encounter like the final like ground-based Pell that we haven't seen yet. So I am being a little bit reckless, just flying from one target to the next. So it is very helpful that you can heal up quite easily when you get to these bases. But the other big plus flavor for the title is just the reimagining of a classic. If you've played the original Formation Z, it's just moving through the stage trying to collect as many points as possible. So adding in a story and having this like mission-based gameplay is a great way to redo a classic game for sure. So that's one of the parts that I really think is awesome about this particular title. And it also has, here's the final mech that I haven't combined with. So now we're, let's see, this ground-based unit. So with all that, combining and the story mission-based gameplay, although the storytelling style might not necessarily be as much to your taste, where it's like that like manga art style, but I still think it's like a really fun way to reimagine classic shoot 'em up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what City Connection does with their final series as it moves further on. So definitely, this is a title that I can recommend if you're a fan of the original Final Formation and you're looking for something that might be a little bit different and a great reimagining of it. Or if you're looking for a mech-based game that's a little bit more unique than some of the shoot-'em-ups that are currently available, then this is definitely one that I can recommend you give a try. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.